Let's start right with that Celtics Pistons. Let me see if I could convince you to ride with me. It's also the best price available, and it's a nice, interesting pricing strategy conversation that we can have, Sean. You can get this at 224 at some other books, but at BetMGM, you can get this at 224 and a half at minus 105 VIG. So given that half a point price difference and the 5 cents on a dollar between a standard minus 110 and this minus 105 at BetMGM, you're actually getting better value taking the worst number and lower VIG and paying the minus 105 at BetMGM. So I think it's a good thing. You could blanketly apply that to any NBA totals and any half point difference that it's probably worth about 2 to 3 cents. So if a different sports book is going to have that 224 line at minus 110 and you could find that 224 and a half at minus 105, you're actually saving 2 or 3 cents on the dollar in your entire bet exposure. So that would be the best place to place it. And then just from the basketball handicap of it, these are teams that launch the three. The only concern for me right now, Sean, is that the Celtics injury report is riddled with a lot of their star players, and you're not sure which way that's going to go. But reading the tea leaves, reading the way that the NBA has kind of handled the player participation this year, and specifically the Celtics recently, they haven't done the we're going to rest 4 players in a night. They've sometimes rest 1 or 2. Drew Holiday's already ruled out, so we know he's going to miss, but likely the rest of the guys are going to end up suiting up and playing. So when those guys are inevitably ruled in, and given the 3-point volume from both of these teams, then I think this line closes around 227 and a half, and grabbing the 224 and a half at low VIG was a no-brainer to start off the night.
Yeah, it was. I was also leaning Cade over 20 and a half on the points if I was going to go do a little correlation on the total over. Yeah, this is the issue with this spot overall for me, and where I was looking but couldn't get to the official, was the injury report. It's so difficult trying to figure out who's going to go, especially when we're talking about totals. Now, I would love to see all the big boys on the floor if I'm trying to run a team like the Pistons, who we just played the other night and beat by 25 points. I would like those big boys on the floor if I'm going to take an over. So it's one of those things where it is pending the injury report, but you're dead on. One thing I do want to say about the Pistons is as many threes as they get up and as many threes as Boston gets up, overall the mentality still with Detroit is they haven't given up. The Utah Jazz have given up. Season's over, done. Let's get out of here as soon as possible. The Pistons show up continually, night in, night out, and try to compete as best they can. 5-4 ATS in their last 9 games. So that is one thing. I'm looking at a lot of motivational spots here as we try to close the year. If I can't find a reason why you would show up in a game, I have nothing. I want no part in trying to back you. If it wasn't for the injury report, I'd be with you here on this over on Detroit and Boston. The things that Boston have been able to do, it got a little tight the other night against Milwaukee coming down the stretch, but outside of that, they have not been playing down the competition like we've been worried about them in years past. They've been coming in every single night and just trying to blitz everyone they see, no mercy. So that's the reason why they're laying these big numbers on the road and covering these numbers. So I would have no qualm taking the over in this matchup for the amount of volume of threes from both Boston and Detroit if the injury report is clean.
Let me just wrap that home, and then we'll move on to the next one, Sean. For anyone listening, check the Twitter of by Jay King. He's the Celtics beat writer who will shoot around times if they're on the court, who's wearing the warm-ups, who's sitting out. So always check, 12 noon, 1 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to start getting reports, and these lines are going to start moving again. And they're really just an ode and a hat tip to where the injury reports are ultimately going to go. Yeah. I go the opposite way of you, Sean. I don't ever look for motivation, and I always say I'm going to take my opinions about the way they are thinking out of it. I want to go based on what am I seeing on the court. And specifically for the Pistons, yes, they're clearly showing up. I mean, you could definitely see that. Monty, we actually should have the discussion of, has Monty completely turned it around where he shouldn't be getting as criticized as he is? The rotations are cleaner. The they traded some of their bigs that were clogging the lane at the deadline, and they end up bringing in a Simone Fontecchio from the Jazz, and they're allowing spacing and floor shooting, and Killian Hayes is gone, and now Jaden Ivey's taking the full complement of minutes right there. So the pace is up, the 3-point frequency is up, and the biggest thing for me and why I love capping Pistons overs right now, Sean, is because their stat set from like mid-season changed so much when their rotation started changing. If you look at their full season data, they're one of the lowest in 3-point volume and frequency. But if you narrow that data down to a more recent sample size, they are near the top of the league. So they are finally acknowledging the spray it out, kind of spray and pray, and hope that you could take down the Boston Celtics with shooting variance. So I do think this is going to be a high 3-point shooting game. And I do think it ultimately closes with some closing line value. You want me to go straight into the next one?
No, one more rebuttal on this one. So when I say motivation, I guess I am just taking what I've seen from them on the floor, and if they're going to show up and play like that the next night. So I guess that is like their mentality of how they've been showing up on a night to night kind of ties in to that motivational factor. And yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly on the rotations. And Simone Fontecchio is a good addition to that squad. But the big one for me is Jaden Ivey getting those minutes for sure.
Yeah, I've been telling people my proof that I've actually been watching Pistons game is Fontecchio's got a black eye right now. So if you go turn on the channel, that's how you know Mike Fiddle's actually watching the Pistons.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yes, well done.